They thought it was salvage. They thought she was unconscious. They didn't know she was Widowmaker. The Ka Dominion had a word for easy kills: shrike. A shrike was prey that didn't run. Meat that didn't scream. The kind of target you didn't waste ammo on. You carved it up with your claws, dragged it back to the warship, and fed it to the pit beasts after taking what was useful. Scout Ship AX-9 was drifting in the barren verge like a broken toy. No weapons powered, life support dead. One human escape pod circling in a lazy, silent arc. Shrike. The Ka raiding vessel Gordex's hunger caught it on short-range scan. 8.2 light minutes from the edge of contested Terran space. Deep enough that no patrols would ping it. A clean snatch. No resistance. The pod's biometric signal showed one occupant. Vitals low, unconscious, female, Terran. Patch it. Pull it, ordered the first claw, Mjog, towering over the bridge on his throne of living sinew. His voice was the grinding of bone. Two haulers dragged the pod into the guts of the warship. A chamber slick with biofilm, pulsing with the dull heartbeat of the Dominion's organic tech. 10 Ka warriors ringed the pod. Armor of chitin and scorched metal, war sigils glowing. The pod hissed open. Steam. Blood scent. And her. She slumped forward, wrists limp, hair matted and stuck to her cheeks in a dark, caked mess. Face bruised. Lip split. A torn Terran scout uniform hung on her, black, minimalist, but spattered with crusted red and one shoulder burned to open flesh. Her eyes were closed. Mjog stepped in. He didn't speak Terran well. Didn't need to. You. Speak, he rasped, stepping closer, jaws clacking. She stirred. A twitch of fingers. A slow breath. Then her head raised, just slightly, and one eye opened. Cold. Pale. Green like glass in ice water. And she spat a tooth into his mask. The room froze. Mjog recoiled, snarling. I asked your designation, he growled louder. Her voice, when it came, was shredded and raw, like sand over rusted iron. You took the wrong scout, she whispered. My callsign is Widowmaker. That name cracked the air like a dropped blade. Half the warriors in the chamber tensed. One stepped back. Another's mouth slacked open. You lie, Mjog said, but there was a shake now in his voice, small and bitter, because they all knew that name. Widowmaker. Human scout. Infiltration specialist. Known for surviving impossible black zone drops. Dozens of Dominion officers dead across 3 sectors. Hunter of warlords. Ship killer. One of the few humans who'd fought inside the Narthex depths and come back. Some said she wasn't even fully human anymore. And now she was on their ship, standing in a circle of armed Ka, grinning with blood in her teeth. No, Mjog said. Not possible. You were. She moved. In the same breath, she launched upward, legs kicking off the inner rim of the pod. A strand of monofilament snapped out from her sleeve, caught the throat of the nearest warrior. She yanked. His neck opened like wet paper. She landed on his body, rolled, used it as a springboard. 2 more came at her with claws. She ducked low, spun. The arc blade hidden in her boot came out in a violet flash, sliced clean through one's Achilles tendons and into the kneecap of the other. Screams. Blood. Then darkness. She triggered the blackout. EMP surge snapped the lights. Emergency strips flickered to red. The door slammed shut, locking the chamber. And in that brief second of horror, something primal returned to the Ka. They realized what they'd let into their hive. Widowmaker. The HUD lens in her eye flicked green, feeding her position data from sonar pulses. Her heartbeat slowed. The screams grew sharper. The smell of blood thicker. She wasn't just killing. She was hunting. A Dominion officer tried to raise comms. Static. Then a hiss of breathing, wet, low, close. I'm behind you, said the voice. He toned. Too slow. She'd slithered up the wall like a shadow and dropped onto him with twin knives, jammed one through his trachea and the other into his spine. The body spasmed. 2 more Ka ran for the sealed door. Widowmaker triggered the gas vent. White mist filled the chamber, neurotoxin harvested from killed Terran prisoners. The Ka howled as their skin blistered. Widowmaker walked through it untouched, mask down, slicing through paralyzed warriors like a surgical machine. 4 minutes. She was alone in the silence again. The lights returned, barely. Blood smeared the walls, the floor, the ceiling. The pod sat in the center like a womb that had birthed a demon. Widowmaker leaned over the last twitching body, pulled the access card from its belt, sliced its throat anyway. Then she walked out. Elsewhere on the ship, alarms began to scream. "She's loose," came a voice in Ka over the comm scout operative. "Multiple dead. Lockdown." "Who let her on board?" "Widowmaker is." Gunfire. Down in Deck 7, a young Ka technician wept silently in the dark. He'd seen the vids, the tactical logs, the urban legends. Widowmaker didn't leave survivors. She turned warships into tombs. Once, she dropped onto a Dominion fortress with nothing but a blade and a gravity rig. 2 days later, 117 confirmed kills. The structure was nothing but smoke. But even he didn't know the real nightmare. Widowmaker didn't kill fast. She took her time. Back on the upper decks, she entered the neurodeck, where the ship's AI-linked priests communed with the Gordexy flesh brain. She cut down 2 robed sentries with precise spine stabs, then lobbed a sonic grenade down the main conduit. Screams from within. She followed the path, jamming her boots into the pulsing walls for grip, moving vertically down a digestive shaft. Her HUD blinked. A ping. A message flashing from outside the ship. Terran code. Bursting coded. Only one person used that frequency with her. Incoming. 2 minutes. Confirmed survival. She didn't smile, but something in her posture relaxed. A flicker of cold relief. Talon Ray. The Reaper. And if she was the Widowmaker, then he was a twink bomb. The pretty boy with glass skin and steel hands, who killed from rooftops, from void space, from the edge of visibility. He'd once sniped through 3 walls and a guard's torso just to whisper surprise in the ear of a Dominion general. He was her only backup. And he was en route. Mjog was screaming orders from the Central Command spire now. Burn her out. Seal the decks. Send the flamers. I want her head. But the crew wouldn't go. Not anymore. Widowmaker was on board. The ship belonged to her now. Every step she took was marked with fresh blood. Every corpse she left behind was a warning. She moved faster than sensors, jammed every camera, bled their tech dry. And when the forward plasma tank exploded, when Deck 3 ruptured and sent half the security team into the void, she was already gone. She was in the ceiling, in the vents, in their nerves, killing them from within. The mistake wasn't that they took her hostage. The mistake was that they let her wake up. And now, she was wide awake. She didn't break free. She carved her way out with a grin and a vendetta. The Ka Dominion didn't build ships. They birthed them. This one groaned with wet breath through pulsing muscle walls and spinal corridors lit by bioluminescent veins. Its bones flexed with each shift of space. Doors weren't mechanical. They were orifices reacting to command pheromones. Even the floors felt alive beneath her boots, like the ship was aware of her. And it was. Widowmaker was a virus in its bloodstream. Her escape wasn't subtle. She didn't sneak. She slaughtered. Every corridor she moved through became a scene of shredded gore and leaking biostructure. The Dominion hadn't taken a hostage. They'd locked death in a cage, and now it was loose. The first massacre was quiet. A nutrient chamber. 15 Ka soldiers, feeding. Their hands dipped into steaming organ vats, faces slick with fermented pulp. One moment they were chewing. The next, one of their heads erupted like a melon. Widowmaker dropped from the ceiling cables, hit the floor rolling, and opened fire with 2 stolen Dominion pistols. Her shots didn't pierce, they devoured. The energy melted armor and flesh alike, punching holes through ribcage and boiling hearts. 3 soldiers lunged. She threw a proximity mine, kicked one into it mid-leap, and used his flaming torso to shield her reload. She pivoted, drove a boot through another's kneecap, and slit his throat before he screamed. She tore a cortex link from the last one's twitching skull and jacked it into her HUD. The ship's internal map spread across her vision. Brainstem, deck junctions, organ relays. The Gordexy core, its living heart, pulsed deep in the sublevels. She set her path. One way. They sent hunter teams. Too slow. Widowmaker rigged her own biosignal to a corpse and threw it into the gravity well chamber. The Dominion tracked it, dropped 2 squads into a trap. She collapsed the floor under them with a repurposed mine. They were crushed in the blink of an eye. Nothing left but pulp and weapon fragments. Widowmaker limped through the aftermath, bleeding from her side, collected gear from the wreckage, and cauterized her wound with a stolen plasma coil. The smell of burning meat filled the air. She didn't flinch. The ship's AI, the Gordexy, sensed her now. It understood she wasn't a prisoner. She was corrosion, a human infection moving through its nerves. So it retaliated. Doors refused to open. Hallways liquefied into slop. Acid vents sprayed. Neural screams poured from the walls, trying to rupture her mind. She grinned, grit her teeth, fought through it. 1 step at a time. 1 kill at a time. High above, orbit. A distortion. Barely visible. No trail. No sound. Just a shimmer of light. And then a cloaked Terran vessel, sleek and silent, matched the warship's trajectory. Inside it, Talon Ray, Reckon Sniper, Twink Reaper, Sins and Eyeliner. He sat upside down in the ship's airlock, legs crossed, spinning a single red-tipped sniper round between his fingers. His armor was tight, aerodynamic, too fashionable for standard ops. His rifle lay beside him like an extension of his body. Signal lock. Widowmaker alive. He smiled. Of course she is. He popped the lock. Vacuum hissed. Then he dove, headfirst into the void. He landed midship, boots locking to the exterior with mag clamps. 1 swift motion, blade drawn, dorsal skin sliced open. Blood sprayed. The Dominion ship groaned. Talon slipped inside through a vent of screaming flesh. A Ka Thari drone turned. Raised a weapon. Talon flicked his wrist. 1 silent slash. The alien dropped, throat open from chin to spine. He leaned casually against a wall and sent a message. Widowmaker. Your favorite sniper just slipped inside. Look alive. The response came fast. Still killing. Still bleeding. Nice of you to join the party. Deck 5. Atrium Spine. Meet me there. I'll bring the chaos. Widowmaker rerouted. Her limp worsened. Blood trailed behind her. But she didn't stop. She'd missed him. Not the smug tone or the style over tactics attitude. She missed the precision. The elegance of death in his hands. Talon made it to Deck 5 first. Security was thick, full guards, 1 brute. He didn't waste time. A flick of the wrist. A canister rolled under their feet. They looked down. Too late. Blinding white. A flash stun. When vision returned, they were choking, and Talon walked through smoke like a prince of ash. Snapshot. 1 dead. Spin shot. Another dropped. The brute lunged. Talon backflipped, planted a blade mid-leap, and rode the beast down in a shower of blood. He was wiping his hands when she arrived. Widowmaker. Face torn, left arm shaking, boots soaked in alien blood. You look like something that crawled out of a reactor, Talon said, grinning. She flicked blood at him. At least I crawled out. You just show up when it's easy. They bumped fists. Old rhythm. Muscle memory. Then moved. Together, they were unstoppable. Talon's sniper rounds cleared corners before they reached them. Widowmaker cut down anyone left standing. They didn't need to speak, every step synced. Every kill executed without hesitation. A drone dropped from the ceiling. Widowmaker ducked and fired upward. Another tried to flank. Talon shot through 3 walls and dropped it without breaking stride. At the atrium core, they reached the spine, a tangled column of nerve cables and wet data tubing. The Gordex's routing junction. Central brain access. Talon pulled a black device from his belt. I call it the spinal tap. Widowmaker raised an eyebrow. Naming your bombs again. He winked. Only the sexy ones. They planted the device. Set the timer. 90 seconds. The ship howled. Security alarms shrieked. Walls pulsed red. The Gordexy knew now, this wasn't sabotage. This was execution. Ka Thari elite soldiers poured in, 10 of them, armored in ceremonial boneplate, weapons fused to their arms. Talon loaded another round. Widowmaker reloaded both pistols. This ends here, she said. Talon's voice was soft. It's already over. They moved like lightning through rot. Talon shot one through the eye before the fight started. Widowmaker went left, rolled through a volley of plasma, and gutted the second with a serrated blade. A third tried to block her. She disarmed it, drove its own weapon through its mouth, and kicked it into its ally. Talon pirouetted around to strike, slid backward, and fired between his legs. Perfect headshot. He flipped to cover, dropped 2 micromines, and vaulted over an incoming brute as it exploded. Blood rained. Screams filled the air. The last Ka-Thari tried to retreat. Widowmaker shot it in the spine. Talon walked up, shot it again in the face. The countdown hit 0. The spinal tap detonated. The Gordex core screamed. The ship convulsed like it was dying, because it was. Brainstem collapse. Neural network failure. Walls trembled. Bulkheads shattered. Entire rooms collapsed inward as memory tissue ruptured. Widowmaker and Talon sprinted through fire and debris. Alarms wailed. They launched themselves into the chute. The Terran ship caught the midfall. Sealed the hatch. Silence. Talon leaned back, breathless. You owe me drinks after this. Widowmaker coughed blood. You bring drinks. I bring knives. Talon grinned. As usual. Outside, the Dominion ship came apart in a slow-blooming funeral of gore and flame, a supernova of rut, ash, and vengeance. They didn't capture a scout. They pulled a trigger. And she was the bullet. They escaped the cage. Now they are hunting the ones who built it. The Dominion thought it was over. They lost a warship. Lost soldiers. Lost a scout they thought was a pet experiment. Somewhere in their neural archives, they marked it as a containment failure. A footnote in their brutal doctrine of conquest. But they didn't just lose a ship. They unleashed a predator. And she was bringing back up. In the night glass forward armory, Widowmaker stood half-stripped, blood still seeping through the bandages she'd stitched herself. She moved like pain was fuel, tightening her armor with the precision of someone who'd already bled too much to care. Across from her, Talon Ray ran a final polish along his custom long rifle, checking the loading grooves with a smirk. He looked too pretty for war, tight synth mesh armor clinging to lean muscle, eyes like iced over stars, eyeliner sharp enough to slice. You're sure it's the Vesh Kraxis? He asked. Widowmaker nodded, jaw tight. That ship ordered the op that put me in their cage. It's wired to the Dominion's primary command neural stem. Talon's grin curled. So we cut out the brain and let the body rot. The Vesh Kraxis was no ordinary vessel. It wasn't a ship. It was a throne, a kilometer-long spine of black organ metal, hovering above the broken remains of the planet Ixion. Every deck bled with history. Every corridor pulsed with neural command traffic from the core Ka-Thari ruling cluster. It carried not just soldiers, but war architects. The ones who made Widowmaker's capture possible. It was time to burn them. The night glare approached in a stealth drift, cloaked in blackout protocol, engine emissions muted. Widowmaker checked her HUD, heat levels rising. Talon's biometric feed showed steady. Heartbeat, 51 BPM. Calm. He was in the zone. Drop pods in 5, he said. Make it 2, she growled. They launched before the countdown hit 0. 2 streaks of kinetic fire peeled off from the night glare, riding nothing but inertia and hatred. Each pod tore through Dominion hull plating like it was paper, crashing into the superstructure with bone-shaking violence. Widowmaker emerged from the wreckage of her pod mid-stride, already firing. She cut down the first 4 Ka-Thari guards before they could stand. The 5th screamed and fired a volley of spine rounds. She ducked under the arc, threw a blade that punched through his eye, and grabbed a nearby explosive node. Armed it. Threw it down the corridor. It exploded, tearing the bio hallway open in a red wave. Smoke followed her as she walked deeper. Talon landed in the observation wing. His pod embedded in the ceiling like a predator's fang. He dropped down in a roll, rifle up, eyes scanning. A technician turned and screamed. Talon shot her mid-breath. Spun. Shot another through the head, the round bursting through the side and tagging the next Ka-Thar in the throat. 3 seconds. Full bodies. He stepped through the blood mist like it was perfume, boots silent on the twitching floor. They moved separately, but toward the same center, the command cortex. The Ka-Thari finally understood they weren't being boarded. They were being hunted. They scrambled, screamed across comms, activated security beast pens and internal death fields. Too late. Widowmaker blew open the path to Deck 10 with a stolen war staff. She jammed the spike into the wall socket and overloaded the ship's bioskin. It peeled away in molten strips. She entered the command pre-chamber through a rain of acid and shrapnel. A prime-class commander blocked the path. 13 feet of living armor, claws the size of her torso. It lunged. She didn't flinch. Instead, she ran toward it, slid under its legs, sliced the tendon at the back of one knee, then climbed its back like a spider and stabbed both sabers into the base of its skull. It collapsed, spasming. She pulled her blades free as its brain liquefied. Talon reached Deck 11, flanked by twitching corpses. A squad had tried to flank him. It didn't go well. He perched at a junction, chambered his final Kree round, and fired through 3 walls into the skull of a relay commander sending reinforcements. The KA exploded in a burst of frozen brain matter and twisted neural cables. Talon muttered, "You won't be missed." They met again at the Cortex gate. She was limping. His cheek was split. Blood clung to them both, most of it not theirs. "Still breathing," she said. "You say that like you're disappointed." They looked at the final door. Inside, the core commanders. The minds behind the war. Talon handed her a plasma charge. "Ladies first." The door exploded inward. Flashlight. Choke smoke. Screams. Widowmaker walked through it, guns blazing. 3 commanders dropped instantly, heads severed or hearts ruptured. One tried to scream for help. Talon's shot took off his jaw before he got past the first syllable. 2 more sprinted for an evac hatch. Widowmaker tackled one mid-run, stabbing him repeatedly until the twitching stopped. Talon used the other as a human shield, then neck-snapped him and threw the body aside like trash. The room was quiet. She activated the disruptor core and planted it inside the main conduit feed. Its countdown began. Talon smiled. "Let's go before the whole thing implodes." Widowmaker, "No. One more." She walked to the final chair. Strapped to it, the KA who ran the vivisection lab where she was first brought after capture. His eyes widened. She didn't speak. She just shot him through both knees. Then knelt beside him. "You ever dissect a human from the toes up?" she whispered. He shrieked as she dragged her knife from his foot to his thigh. Talon didn't stop her. When she was done, the commander was half a man, and very, very dead. The disruptor detonated. The cortex buckled. Systems crashed. The Veshkraxis went insane. Command hierarchies collapsed. Drones turned on officers. Fire suppression systems activated in reverse, burning everything instead of saving it. Artificial gravity inverted. Widowmaker and Talon sprinted through carnage and chaos. Bodies dropped from the ceiling. Blood flooded halls. They made it to the dorsal peak and activated the breach beacon. The night glare roared in and pulled them aboard mid-jump, just as the cortex collapsed in on itself. The ship folded like a dying beast. They stood in the bay, catching their breath. "Still hot," Talon said. Widowmaker didn't respond. She just looked out the viewport, watched the Veshkraxis implode in a series of controlled, ugly detonations, then disappear in a silent bloom of ash. One Dominion Council ship down. The rest would feel it. Would know someone was out there with a grudge and a hit list. The mistake wasn't taking her hostage. The mistake was letting her go. They took her blood. She took their command structure. The Dominion didn't announce the loss of the Veshkraxis. They couldn't. Not when its neural core was fused into the ruling system itself. Not when its death created a backflow of command latency that shattered Ka Thari military coordination across 3 sectors. The bleed cascaded backward. Entire fleets blinked offline mid-maneuver. Drones collapsed mid-flight. War councils defaulted to primal directives and tore themselves apart from inside. Widowmaker and Talon didn't wait for the fallout to settle. They lit their next match before the smoke finished rising. 3 council cores remain, Widowmaker said, back aboard the night glare, standing over a holomap with flickering red tendrils. Her fingers dragged through the display like a surgeon preparing for autopsy. She tapped 3 points. Threxel 9. Akar Vault. Core Terminus. Talon stood nearby, shirtless and blood-dusted, cleaning one of his sidearms with casual elegance. Which one dies first? A car, she said. It's the heart of their war funding. Resource chains. Genetic harvests. They finance everything from there. Talon smiled. Let's bankrupt an empire. The Akar vault wasn't a ship. It was a moon hollowed out into a fortress of flesh and steel, orbiting the neutron furnace of Saraxa Prime. It hosted trillions of credits worth of biomatter, cloned weapon stock, and Dominion DNA banks. Its security systems were paranoid. Layers upon layers of drones, radiation gates, psychic filters. Entry was considered impossible without insider codes or clearance from 4 Dominion Council members. Widowmaker didn't need clearance. She needed a hole and a reason. She had both. They arrived in stealth, riding the event horizon of the sun itself, hiding in gravitational noise and radiation flare. Widowmaker's skin blistered under the suit. Talon's armor melted in places. They didn't flinch. This'll cook our lungs if we stay too long, Talon said. We won't be here long, she replied. They launched drop pods again, but these weren't kinetic missiles. They were decoys. A dozen scattered in all directions, simulating boarding assaults and sending the vault's defenses into a twitching frenzy. While Dominion security chased ghosts, Widowmaker and Talon slid in through a blind spot, a vented recycling duct previously mapped by her during her captivity. She'd spent months memoizing the vault's layouts while being vivisected. Now she was using that knowledge to break it open. Inside, the vault smelled like antiseptic and wet metal. Ka-Thari guards patrolled in pairs, augmented by leashed synth creatures with bladed feet and ultrasonic senses. Widowmaker shot the first patrol from the shadows, bullets kissing through skulls like whispered vengeance. Talon lured the synth creature into a narrow column and crushed its head between hydraulic doors. They didn't pause. They never paused. They reached the genetic vaults. Rows upon rows of suspended clone tanks, filled with Ka-Thari hybrids, some barely formed, others grown for war, twitching behind reinforced glass. Widowmaker placed 2 thermal charges on the central biopylon. Talon added 3 more, spiked in a V pattern. Let's see how they like losing their future, she said. The charges blew in sequence. The vault lit up in screams, not from the clones, but from the Dominion control systems, screeching as millions of biocredits were erased from the genetic banks. But security finally adapted. From the far levels came the Black Channelers, elite Dominion death science who didn't use weapons. They were the weapons. The first one hit them with a psychic pulse that sent Widowmaker to her knees, bleeding from both nostrils. Talon dropped behind cover, fingers twitching, brain spasming as reality bent sideways. Then he grinned. I hate mind freaks, he whispered. He leapt from cover and fired a void splitter round through the channeler's brainpan. Its skull ruptured like a fault line, spilling ichor across the vault floor. 2 more advanced. Widowmaker planted her boots and pulled out her blades. She didn't wait for the pain to pass. She launched herself through it. The first blade severed one channeler's left arm. The second drove through its jaw and pinned it to the wall. The third, her backup blade, carved through the spinal node of the final one midchant, disrupting its mind stream and sending it into a seizure. She stood over their twitching remains, breathing fire through blood-slicked teeth. They pushed forward to the vault's heart. The control room wasn't a console. It was a living interface of Ka-Thari nobles linked by a psychic lattice. Their bodies hung suspended in neural cords, every limb twitching, mouths wired open to speak commands into the Dominion's vast network. At the center was High Mintakaj, the financial brain of the entire war effort. Wrapped in gold-plated exoskin, ringed with consciousness amps, his mind processed entire sectors worth of logistics in seconds. Widowmaker didn't let him speak. She shot his amp node first, shattered it into shards. Then she fired into his legs, his hands, until the control lattice collapsed under its own dying signals. Talon lobbed a thermite charge into the relay chamber. As Kaj screamed, the system ignited. The Dominion's bank collapsed with it. Funds, resources, black market cloning deals, weapon transfer accounts, all erased in a single firestorm. Across the sector, Dominion allies received blank account notifications. Starships ran out of fuel. Troop movements halted. Entire regiments were left stranded in hostile zones. The war hadn't ended, but it had been strangled. The escape wasn't elegant. It wasn't meant to be. They ran through hell. Flames licking the walls. Ka troops stumbling in chaos. Drones shooting allies. Security fields locking down on nothing, trapping their own personnel. Widowmaker and Talon blasted their way to the extraction point, one mag left between them. When a Dominion enforcer dropped from the ceiling, Talon shot him mid-fall, kicked the body into a control panel, and laughed. I think they are starting to notice us. Widowmaker's smile was feral. Good. The night glare grabbed them through a breached tunnel just as the vault collapsed in on itself, the genetic backups screaming into the void as centuries of biocapital turned to stardust. Widowmaker didn't look back. She was already pulling the map up again. Talon wiped the blood off his collarbone with a sigh. So, 2 left. She nodded. Threxel 9. Then caught Terminus. He flexed his fingers. You thinking what I'm thinking? We do both. At once. At once. Talon grinned. You're really bad at pacing. Widowmaker's eyes burned. They took everything slow from me, so I'm taking everything fast from them. The Dominion was falling in reverse. Not in battle, not in diplomacy, but in system failure, collapsing backward through its own power structures. The loss of Veshkraxis had torn out the tongue. The burning of a carved vault had snapped the spine. Now only Core Terminus remained. The seat of Ka thought. A neural temple where the Dominion's top command units meditated, plotted, and dictated entire genocides with the flick of a claw. It wasn't a building. It was a living godmind, built into a deep-cratered moon, encased in psychic alloy and wrapped in reality anchors. The place pulsed in space like a wound that refused to close. You didn't infiltrate Core Terminus. You sacrificed yourself to it. Unless you were already dead inside. Entry vector locked, Widowmaker said, strapping herself into the Black Core assault rig. Her suit was custom now, rebuilt from enemy tech and stolen biosteel. Thinner than armor, but stronger than guilt. It wrapped around her in muscle-tight plates, her pulse sinking to the HUD like it was her second heartbeat. Talon stood across from her, bare-armed under his armor harness, checking one last plasma dart under his nails. His long rifle was clipped to his back. 2 hip pistols glinted like vipers. You sure we're not just suicide walking into a dream bomb? Widowmaker didn't blink. They used me to test psychic warfare feedback. Right. You do have the trauma badge for this. I am the trauma badge. They launched from the night glare on a path no sane ship dared trace, a hyperspike arc that blitzed through 2 unstable wormholes, 3 asteroid field bands, and a solar flare curtain. The Dominion had cloaked Core Terminus in every natural hazard imaginable. None of it slowed the Widowmaker. They landed upside down relative to the moon's magnetic core, a deliberate vector to avoid tripwire mine halos that tracked standard approach patterns. Their entry pods cracked open with steam. Widowmaker stepped out into a graveyard. The moon's surface was littered with corpses. Not human. Ka Thari. All of them former high cost. Dozens, maybe hundreds, executed by Dominion internal security, their heads pulped or their spines ripped out. Talon crouched near one and poked the mangled jaw with his boot. This looks recent. Cleanup crew's been here, Widowmaker said. They purged anyone with doubts. Talon smirked. They are nervous. They should be. They entered through a corpse chute, a biodisposal tunnel that fed directly into a septic organ that lined the perimeter of Core Terminus. It reeked of blood and ideology. Inside, the moon pulsed with thought. Psychic waves bounced off the walls, distorting sound and time. For 5 seconds, Talon thought he was back in the trenches on Dralian. For 2, Widowmaker saw herself in a Dominion cage again, scalp torn, skin flayed. She blinked, focused, used the pain. The deeper they went, the more real the unreality became. Memories leaked. Thoughts bled. At one point, Talon shot at something that wasn't there, until it was, and the bullet took its head clean off. Widowmaker whispered, their minds are so bloated, they've lost track of what's real. Talon glanced at her through sweat-slick lashes. Good. Let's carve reminders into them. The first real resistance came at the Cork Conduit Gate, a 30-meter-wide biomechanical threshold surrounded by Ka etheric priest commanders in neural combat trance. They hovered, blindfolded, mouths sealed shut with memorisilk, feeding the gate pulses of psychic commands. Behind them, Dominion Prime Blood Enforcers, 12 feet tall, made of ritualized bone plate and brutal implants. Widowmaker didn't wait. She lobbed a grave slicer into the center of the prayer circle and activated the pulse. It didn't explode. It folded them, turned gravity inside out, imploding bone and flesh like clay in a hurricane. Talon dropped low, shot 3 enforcers in the eyes mid-charge, then flipped into the air and fired 2 shots into the vent above. A deluge of frozen coolant burst down. The enforcers screamed as their overclocked implants froze and cracked. Widowmaker slid through the chaos, dragging her blades across muscle and steel. When the last one fell, she turned, breath fogging the air. That was the warm-up. Talon licked blood from his lip. So what's the workout? They passed through the gate and into the Hall of Voices, the living mindstream chamber. It wasn't just a place. It was a chorus. Thousands of preserved Ka-Thari minds hung suspended in fluid stasis, speaking all at once. Every thought they'd ever had was digitized and injected back into the living Dominion command tree. Each voice tried to scream at them, convince them, break them. Widowmaker walked straight through it. Each voice slammed into her psyche, trying to relive her worst hours, her torture, her grief. She didn't block it. She remembered it. She took it in, let it fuel her heartbeat, sharpen her nerves. By the time she reached the core threshold, her skin was glowing. Talon stared at her. Are you even human anymore? Widowmaker turned slowly. No. She planted 3 neural bombs on the base of the mind stem. I'm was. When they reached the final chamber, everything went silent. The throne room of Court Terminus was a void. Inside, suspended in a globe of liquid thought, was the Triune, the last 3 Dominion commanders. 3 minds. 1 throne. A trinity of psychics fused by blood law, capable of ripping fleets apart with a whisper. They saw her. And they remembered her. You were a tool. A broken pet. You escaped, but you never left. Widowmaker stepped forward. I didn't leave, she said. I grew teeth. They tried to crush her with thought alone. Psychic waves slammed into her, turned her bones into glass, her stomach into knives. She fell to one knee. Talon roared and fired, round after round into the psychic globe, the glass shattering, liquid thought spraying into the void. Widowmaker stood, trembling. Then she ran. Straight at them. She dove into the globe, ripped through fluid time. Her blades screamed as they slashed into the first commander's face. She stabbed again, and again, until the thoughts stopped. Talon joined her, shoulder slamming into the second mind form, detonating a plasma charge at the spine. It exploded in burning light. The third tried to flee, crawling psychically up the chamber walls. Widowmaker hurled her blade with a scream, it buried to the hilt in its throat. Silence. The Triune died. And the Dominion's lost mind went with them. Systems crashed. Signal trees collapsed. Fleets across the galaxies screamed, blind, deaf, leaderless. The empire that took her crumbled like a myth finally outlived. They walked back through the ruins together. Not running, just walking. Blood on their boots. Ash in their lungs. Stars blinking outside like curious gods. Widowmaker looked at Talon. It's done. Talon gave a bloody, tired grin. Now what? She turned to the void. Now we make sure it stays done.